actually busier than we were before COVID-19. And in part, that is because all the businesses that are struggling to adopt policies and procedures that protect the health and safety of their employees and their customers and still be able to make a profit. And it's very interesting because if you look at the changes in technology, it's enabled us to do a lot of things that we couldn't do before. And I think it was early March, maybe the end of the first week or the beginning of the second, that we decided to take our practice remote. We were one of the first entities, I think, in Westchester County to do that. And about maybe 3 weeks ago, we told our employees that they could start coming back on an optional basis if they wanted to. And the operation, we have approximately 42 employees, of setting that up has helped us give our clients guidance on what they need to do to open their businesses safely and how they need to deal with their employees. We made the decision early on before a lot of the programs came out, like the Payroll Protection Program and the CARES Act. We actually told our employees that we didn't know what the future was going to hold, but that we were a team, we were a family, and that even though people were at home, we were going to pay everybody literally until we ran out of money. And it was amazing the amount of goodwill and interest that developed. Our employees jumped right in board. If you look at the actual history of I'll call it the history of pandemic law or public health law, we're repeating ourselves over and over again in terms of quarantine, isolation, segregation procedures, and the court cases. You go back, there were early court cases reported on the bubonic plague. There were cases more recently involving Ebola. Most recently in New York, there were cases with measles vaccination. These were all circumstances where public health jumped to the forefront, and the courts needed to jump in and try to figure out how to structure the law. And one of the things you'll see is, I don't want to go political on this, but if you look on the news every day, there's a lot of national news. But the truth is that the public health laws are really administered on the state level. The power of the federal government to deal with issues involving quarantine and segregation are primarily at the border, at ports, sometimes, between states, but the actual implementation of policies are done on the state level. And here in New York, we were hit hard, very hard, and our governor jumped in and started with the very beginning of a series of executive orders. We're starting to see court cases now. What are the limits? How far can the governor go? When does the governor have to get the legislature to approve it? And even then, are there limits on how long a business can be forced to be closed? What types of steps does a business need to take to reopen? And that's a constantly evolving area.
Is this something that a business should be trying to figure out on its own, or is this where you really do need experienced legal advice?
You definitely should have experienced legal advice. But you have to keep in mind that, as lawyers, we don't necessarily know every detail of your business. And so there's a need to have a back and forth and a conversation to understand what you need to produce, what your product is, what your market is, how you need to use your employees, and whether it's the type of work that can be done remotely or if it has to actually be done in person. And then we can assist you in developing different policies that are consistent with the law in that area. There are areas where I would be very careful. And the first thing is dealing with your employees, okay? And your employees are, for most businesses, your most important asset. And you need to make sure that they're healthy, and you need to make sure that there's a sense that you as an employer have their best interests at heart. However, you will find that there are going to be circumstances all over where there's a potential for liability. So there are quite a few state and federal, or if you're in Manhattan or Brooklyn or the Bronx, New York City, employment laws that you need to be very sensitive to in terms of whether you can compel somebody to come to work, for example. If they've been working remotely, they might feel very concerned about coming back to work. They may be concerned about their health. And, you know, on a non-legal basis, just on a practical basis, if you implement the types of requirements that the Center for Disease Control and New York State has implemented about washing your hands, having sanitation, having people wear masks when they're, you know, engaging with each other or in public, having screens up, limiting access in and out of public areas, minimizing conference rooms, you're also going to substantially minimize legal problems that you may have. You know, there's going to be a lot of litigation, and a lot of it's going to be frivolous maybe, but you don't really want to be caught up in someone saying, I was forced to go to work and then I got sick, or a customer coming into your business, looking around and saying, oh, there's not a real sensitivity to my health or my concern here, I should take my business elsewhere, or getting sick and coming back and saying, I got sick when I went to this particular business.